picture this for a second. You are an 18th century Italian wife and a mother of 7 children, and you are completely just utterly overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah, like totally exhausted.
Right. You're exhausted by this endless mountain of daily chores. You're trying to manage a pretty quick-tempered husband. Your incredibly cantankerous, broke parents have just moved into your tiny 2-room apartment, and the baby's crying again.
Just an absolute nightmare scenario of stress, honestly.
Exactly. But on top of all of that chaos, you also happen to be like one of the most powerful mystics and prophets of your entire era. Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah, it's a really wild story today.
It really is. Today, we are exploring a life where extreme, gritty, everyday domestic duty collided head-on with the supernatural. We're looking at the life of Blessed Anna Maria Taigi.
Right, so she was born in 1769 in Siena, Italy, and she died in Rome in 1837. And she is this completely fascinating historical figure precisely because her life, well, it shatters the mold of what we typically imagine when we hear the word mystic.
Yeah, I mean, you don't usually picture a mystic changing diapers,
Yeah.
or mediating screaming matches between her mother and her husband.
No, not at all. It's usually quiet cloisters and chanting.
Exactly. And we are pulling from a really intriguing stack of materials today for you. We've got historical Catholic encyclopedias, biographical accounts, the official sworn testimonies from her beatification process.
Which are incredibly detailed, by the way.
Very detailed. And to top it all off, a modern philosophical essay that actually uses her corpse to analyze how we as a society today perceive reality.
Which sounds macabre, but it's actually brilliant.
It is. So our mission here is to unpack how those two worlds, the incredibly mundane and the wildly supernatural, somehow coexisted in one woman. And more importantly, we want to look at how her legacy challenges our highly polished, curated expectations of what a miracle is actually supposed to look like.
Yeah, and to really grasp the profound nature of those miracles and the philosophy we'll get into later, we really have to start with the raw reality of her early life.
We do, because this wasn't someone who had it easy.
Not at all. Born Anna Maria Gianetti, her father was a pharmacist who went completely bankrupt when she was just 6 years old.
Wow, just 6. That's so young to have your whole life upended.
Right, and that bankruptcy forced the entire family to pack up and relocate to Rome just to survive.
Yeah.
They basically took whatever jobs they could find as domestic servants.
So we are talking about late 1700s Rome, but not the Rome of grand palaces and, beautiful fountains.
No. This is the gritty, exhausting, urban poverty side of the city. She had almost no formal schooling. I mean, she learned how to read, but she never actually learned how to write.
That's wild. So instead of a classroom, she's working.
Yeah, she spent her youth in a sewing shop.
Right.
She was laboring over these beautiful, extravagant dresses for the wealthy, noble ladies of the city.
And then at age 20, she marries Domenico Taigi. He is a 28-year-old kitchen porter and butler for the noble Chigi family. They move into a dark, cramped 2-room apartment.
And Domenico, well, he is a highly complex figure in these historical accounts.
Oh, completely.
The sources often describe him as a deeply devoted husband, but in the exact same breath, they note he was incredibly ill-tempered and prone to rages.
Wait, I need to stop you there because the sources really threw me off on this point. How are we squaring that? The accounts say he was devoted, but then they talk about him throwing absolute tantrums over, like how the house was ordered. Was this guy a good, loving husband, or was he just a domestic tyrant?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it speaks to the complex, often harsh realities of lower working-class marriages of the era.
Yeah.
Domenico wasn't a monster, but he was a man under immense financial pressure.
Right, working a really tough job.
A grueling service job, yeah. And he demanded total control over his tiny domain at home. He loved his wife fiercely, but his love was wrapped in a very caustic, rigid, and explosive personality. If dinner was 5 minutes late or a chair was out of place, he would erupt.
Which sounds awful. And as if a chronically stressed, explosive husband wasn't enough to deal with, Anna's bankrupt, argumentative parents move into that exact same tiny apartment.
It's just a recipe for disaster.
Seriously, imagine the stress of that environment. You have daily, vicious screaming matches between her mother and her hot-tempered husband, and Anna is stuck squarely in the middle.
Yeah, she's just trying to mediate and keep the peace.
Plus, she eventually gave birth to 7 children, 3 of whom tragically died in infancy, which was a devastating but, common reality of the time.
Her daily existence was essentially a pressure cooker. She was washing clothes by hand, managing a razor-thin household budget, cooking for a demanding husband and extended family.
And sewing late into the night just to keep them all afloat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is a twist here that is so fascinating.
I absolutely love this twist because it sets up the entire theme of our deep dive today, this tension between a curated image and messy reality. Despite all this poverty and chaos, Anna was actually quite vain.
Very vain, which you don't expect.
No. But she spent all day making these fancy dresses for rich women, and she wanted a piece of that glamour. She loved fine clothes, she loved wearing pearl necklaces, putting flowers in her dark hair.
And strolling through the Roman piazzas on Domenico's arm, specifically so people would look at her.
Yes, she wanted to be seen.
She was desperately trying to simulate a life she didn't actually possess. She wanted to project the image of a wealthy noblewoman to mask the grueling reality of her two-room apartment.
I mean, if she were on today, she would absolutely have that stressed working parent mixed with a budget influencer energy.
Oh, 100%.
You know, taking perfectly angled photos at a coffee shop to hide the fact that her bank account is overdrawn. She wanted the glitz. So how does a vain, exhausted working mother, desperately clinging to a simulated image of wealth, pivot to becoming a renowned spiritual giant?
Well, it literally starts with a physical collision in a crowd. It's the winter of 1790. Anna is at St. Peter's Basilica. She is leaning on Domenico's arm, wearing one of her extravagant, flashy dresses.
Probably looking fabulous on his
Oh,
own.
totally. And she accidentally bumps into a Servite priest named Father Angelo Verandi in the piazza.
And they don't even exchange a single word, right?
Not one word. But according to the historical accounts, the moment they bump, the priest hears an inner divine voice telling him, "Observe that woman. I have chosen her to become a saint."
Wow. Just from a bump in the crowd.
Yeah. And simultaneously, just from that brief physical contact, Anna experiences a violent psychological shift. She feels a sudden, overwhelming, crushing conviction of her own vanities.
Like it all just crashes down on her.
Exactly. The superficial image she's been projecting suddenly feels completely hollow to her.
So she rushes into the church, desperately finds a confessional, throws herself down and cries out, "Father, you have at your feet a great sinner."
But the priest inside, who she has never met, harshly dismisses her.
He barks at her. He says, "Go away, you are not one of my penitents," and he literally slams the little wooden confessional slide shut right in her face.
It's brutal.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because if I am carrying the weight of the world, I finally have a profound spiritual awakening, I build up the courage to seek help, and the literal first religious authority I go to slams a door in my face, I am out.
Yeah, I'd go home immediately.
I am walking away forever. Why doesn't she just say, forget this, and go back to her pearl necklaces in the piazzas?
It is the defining question of her early spiritual life. And looking at the psychology of her conversion, that exact moment of rejection is the crucible. Her resilience right there is the defining marker of her transformation.
Because it tested if she really meant it.
Right. She had just realized that her vain, curated life was a simulation. If she turned back to the pearls just because a human being was rude to her, it would mean her spiritual awakening was just another superficial feeling.
That makes sense.
She didn't let a negative experience with human frailty like a grumpy priest keep her from a genuine calling.
So she pushes through the rejection. She actually goes to a completely different church later, the Church of San Marcello. She waits in a massive line for a priest who is known to be a compassionate confessor.
And this part is incredible.
She finally gets into the confessional, and amazingly, the priest sitting inside is Father Verandi, the exact same priest she bumped into at St. Peter's.
It's like something out of a movie. He recognizes her immediately, welcomes her, and her life changes completely. The accounts describe her having a profound inner vision shortly after this second confession.
Oh, what did she see?
She hears Jesus asking her to make a definitive choice, to follow Jesus, poor and naked and stripped of all, or to follow him in his triumph and glory.
And she chooses the cross. She chooses the messy, painful reality of humility over the shiny simulation of glory.
Exactly. Having made that choice, her lifestyle radically transforms. She strips away all the jewelry. She embraces plain, coarse clothing.
Surprisingly, she actually gets Domenico's blessing to do this. I wouldn't have expected that from him.
Yeah, he was surprisingly supportive of this specific change. And she formally becomes a secular Trinitarian.
Let's define that for the listener because it's a crucial distinction. Becoming a secular Trinitarian basically means she didn't run away to become a nun.
Right, no cloister for her.
She took solemn vows and committed to a deeply ascetic, prayerful lifestyle, but as a layperson. She did it right there in the world, in her marriage, in her tiny apartment.
What's fascinating here is that she stays in the kitchen, and the supernatural basically invades her household. And the most extraordinary part of this, which is heavily documented in the Vatican's official beatification records, meaning the hyper-detailed sworn testimonies gathered by the Church, is a phenomenon referred to as the mystic sun.
A mystic sun. This is wild.
For 47 years, until the day she died, the records state she saw a miraculous glowing globe, like a sun crowned with thorns, hovering consistently just above her head.
But it wasn't just a glowing light, right? Inside this globe, she could literally see things. Past events, future events, the hidden state of people's souls, and incredibly complex global political maneuvers happening thousands of miles away.
It's like having a divine security monitor in your living room.
Think about the cognitive load of that for a second. Imagine having an open browser tab in your brain, streaming the deepest secrets of the universe, the geopolitical shifts of European empires, and the sins of your neighbors, 24/7.
It's mind-boggling.
But you can't just sit and stare at it because you still have to chop onions, wash the laundry by hand, and stop your parents from screaming at your husband.
The juxtaposition is staggering. But the underlying theology of her life, according to her own visions, was that her specific mission was to prove that you do not need to escape your life to be holy.
That's a powerful message.
Sanctity, even the highest levels of mystical union with the divine, can be achieved within the ordinary, frustrating, messy duties of a chaotic family life. Think about your own daily chores: doing the dishes, answering endless emails, sitting in traffic.
We constantly view those things as obstacles to a meaningful life.
Exactly. The radical theology of Taigi's life is that those exact frustrating moments are the mechanism for meaning.
And the contrast between her cosmic knowledge and her daily reality often borders on high comedy, honestly. She would frequently fall into deep catatonic ecstasies right at the dinner table.
It's just mid-meal.
Yeah, she'd be sitting there with a fork halfway to her mouth, suddenly transported into a vision of heaven. Once, when she went into one of these deep ecstasies, their daughter started screaming, "Mama is dead! Mama is dead!"
And Domenico's reaction is just classic.
Her famously grumpy husband just rolls his eyes and grumbles, "Be quiet. She's asleep." She had no sleep last night. He genuinely just thought his wife was passing out from exhaustion mid-bite.
It completely grounds the supernatural and the mundane. But we also have to highlight that she balanced these profound ecstasies with extreme, grueling acts of physical charity. She didn't just sit around looking into a mystic sun, she acted.
Right, she was very hands-on.
When her difficult father contracted leprosy, she bathed him and cared for him tenderly until his death. She would bring starving, filthy, pestilence-ridden beggars from the Roman streets into her tiny home to wash and feed them.
There is a story from the San Giacomo Hospital that really anchors this. She would regularly visit the terminally ill, and there was a patient there named Santa, whose face was literally being eaten away by a necrotic disease.
It's a horrific image.
The smell of rotting flesh was so horrific that people, even Anna's own daughter who accompanied her, couldn't physically stand to be in the same room. But Anna would walk right up, sit with her, physically wash her wounds, rock her like a baby, and tell her gagging daughter, "Smell the fragrance of her soul."
That is the ultimate rejection of the superficial. She is looking past the visceral horror of decay and seeing the profound dignity of reality. And eventually, this level of extreme integrated authenticity could no longer be kept a secret in Rome.
So she has this profound, localized humility in her tiny apartment. She's washing lepers and chopping onions. How on earth does a woman who actively avoids attention and refuses to take a single penny from anyone suddenly end up counseling the mother of Napoleon Bonaparte?
That's quite the leap.
What is the mechanism that bridges her kitchen to the royal courts of Europe?
The mechanism was her undeniable accuracy combined with her absolute incorruptibility. Word leaked out about her gifts through her confessors and the people she helped. But what made the royalty and the cardinals actually listen to a peasant woman was her track record.
She was right about a lot of things.
She started accurately predicting major geopolitical events. She foresaw the devastating fall of Napoleon. She predicted the exact, unexpectedly short pontificates of Pope Leo XII and Pope Pius VIII.
She even famously pointed at a cardinal named Capillari in a chapel and bluntly stated that he would be the next pope. And he was, becoming Pope Gregory XVI.
Which blew people away.
When a woman who makes your dresses casually tells you exactly how the global political landscape is going to unfold over the next decade, and then it happens exactly as she said, people start lining up at her door.
But importantly, she refused all wealth. The powerful offered her bags of gold, and she turned them all down, insisting on staying up late to sew clothes just to earn her daily bread. That refusal of wealth proved her authenticity to a highly cynical political elite.
But her most famous, and certainly her most intense prediction, is known as the 3 Days of Darkness. For the listener, we are strictly reporting what the historical texts and her beatification records claim she saw in that mystic sun.
Yes, strictly reporting here. According to the historical source texts, this is an apocalyptic prophecy. She claimed that a future punishment would cover the entire earth in an absolute intense darkness for 3 days and 3 nights.
Wow, 3 full days.
Yeah, and the accounts of her vision state the air would become pestilential, demons would roam visibly, and absolutely no artificial light. No lamps, no fires would work at all. Only blessed candles would provide illumination.
That is terrifying. The sources also report her predicting that enemies of the church would perish during this time, and that after this darkness lifted, a massive global conversion would take place, led by Saints Peter and Paul coming down from heaven to designate a new pope.
It's a massive, sweeping vision.
Again, that is what is written in the 19th century records. On a much more localized level, she also predicted that a terrifying outbreak of cholera would entirely spare the city of Rome right up until the exact day she died.
And the historical record backs up the timeline of that local prophecy. She died at 4 a.m. on June 9, 1837. Immediately following her death, the cholera scourge broke out in the city of Rome, creating massive panic.
Which brings us to the most bizarre and honestly the most thought-provoking part of this entire deep dive. It's what happened to her physical body after 1837 and what it reveals about how you and I interact with the world today.
Following her death, her body was exhumed in 1868. According to the official church records of the exhumation, it was found completely intact and incorrupt.
Let's clarify what incorrupt means in this context. We are talking about the incorruptibles, a historical phenomenon predominantly in the Catholic and Orthodox traditions where human bodies seemingly defy the natural process of decomposition for decades or even centuries after death.
Right, remaining pliable and intact without any embalming.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In 1868, she was deemed incorrupt. However, by the time the church opened her casket to examine the body again in 1920, nature had taken its course and the body had naturally decayed.
It happens. Biology eventually wins out.
Today, if you go to the Basilica of St. Chrysogonus in Rome to visit her shrine, you will see a body on display in a glass case. But the pristine face and hands you are looking at are entirely encased in a wax figure.
Right, it's not the actual skin you're seeing.
The wax is sculpted to look perfectly peaceful, like she is just flawlessly asleep with perfect skin. And this brings us to that modern philosophical essay we mentioned at the start, The Corpse and the Cosmos. The author uses her wax-encased body to explore the French philosopher Jean Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality.
Baudrillard's theory is just essential for understanding modern culture. He theorized that society progresses through stages of alienation from reality. It starts with reality itself, the actual physical world. Then human beings create a simulation.
Like a map, right?
Exactly. Think of a map. A map is a simulation that mimics a real territory, or a movie trying to depict real life. But eventually, society reaches the stage called hyperreality.
Hyperreality is when the map becomes more important than the territory. It is an imitation of an imitation. It's when the fake, curated version of things becomes our accepted baseline for reality, and the actual real world starts to feel inadequate or wrong because it doesn't match the map.
The classic modern example is social media. We don't just post the mundane reality of our lives, we post a heavily filtered, curated simulation.
Yeah, the highlight reel.
Right. Then other people see that simulation and try to imitate it in their own lives, creating an imitation of an imitation. The hyperreal, the filtered photo, becomes what we expect life to actually look like. Then the essay, The Corpse and the Cosmos, brilliantly argues that modern society has done this exact same thing with death and miracles.
Modern humans are deeply, profoundly alienated from the physical reality of death. We hide it away in hospitals. When we do interact with it at a funeral, we expect it to look like the hyperreal version.
Like a pristine, plump, makeup-covered body resting on satin pillows in a highly expensive coffin.
We have completely lost touch with the messy, organic, biological reality of human decay. So because we live with this hyper-real expectation of what a body should look like, when modern pilgrims travel to Rome and look at the wax-covered incorruptibles like Anna Maria Taigi, they often feel disappointed.
They're highly skeptical.
Yeah, they look at the wax mask and feel tricked. So what does this all mean?
They feel tricked because the simulation is too obvious. But the essay points out a fascinating historical contrast. To the ancient or pre-modern mind, the cosmos was already deeply saturated with meaning. A miracle didn't need to look like a perfect, permanent Hollywood special effect to be valid.
They didn't need the filter.
Exactly. To the people in 1868, any slight ordinary deviation from the natural decay process, even if it didn't last forever, was recognized as a profound, earth-shattering message from God. They were comfortable with the messy reality of the territory. We demand a flawless map.
It's like we are standing in front of a profound historical mystery, and we are upset that the Instagram filter is glitching. We want the miracle to look like a flawless wax doll, and if the wax cracks, we throw the whole miracle away.
And that is the true tragedy here. The tragedy isn't that Blessed Anna Maria Taigi's body eventually succumbed to the natural biological processes of the earth. The real tragedy is that a modern observer might walk past her reliquary, see the wax, and completely dismiss her incredibly radical, transformative life simply because her physical remains don't match our hyper-polished, artificial expectations of what perfection should be.
We miss the profound substance because we are obsessed with the simulation. We want the pristine map, and we completely ignore the beautiful, greedy, exhausting territory of her actual life.
It's a profound lesson, really.
So to distill this deep dive into its core, Blessed Anna Maria Taigi was a woman who lived an absolute paradox. She was a deeply ordinary, exhausted, overworked mother trying to keep her chaotic family together in a tiny apartment.
But also so much more.
Yet she possessed world-shaking mystical gifts that commanded the attention of popes and emperors. And now, her very bones hidden beneath a layer of pristine wax serve to challenge our modern understanding of reality, simulation, and what we consider miraculous.
She is a historical testament to the fact that the extraordinary is very often hidden right inside the most grueling, mundane parts of the ordinary. You don't need to escape your life or simulate a better one to find profound meaning. Sometimes you just have to look closer at the chores in front of you.
Which leaves you with a thought to mull over as you go about your day. If we are truly living in a hyper-reality, a world where we vastly prefer comfortable, flawless simulations over complex, messy truths, what other miracles of everyday life are you failing to notice simply because they aren't packaged perfectly?
It really makes you think.
Yeah. If an 18th century mom surrounded by screaming kids, a grumpy husband, and a mountain of laundry could see the secrets of the universe at her kitchen table, what might you see if you stopped looking for the filter and finally started looking at the reality? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the reality around you.